So before I'm starting the actual creepypasta, a little bit of a backstory here. The author of this creepypasta recently moved into his dorm room, starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of him gave him a Nintendo 64 to play with. It only came with Super Smash Bros., and after getting bored, he decided to look in the neighborhood for cheap deals on video games through garage sales. The interesting deal came from an old man. He gave the author a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard grey color, except that someone had written Majora on it in black permanent marker. The old man gave it for free, and told him that it used to belong to a kid who was about his age that didn't live there anymore. And that's where the story begins. Upon leaving, the man smiled and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least, that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine, and there was one save file named simply Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent, and obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file. Eyeballing it, I could tell that it was pretty far in the game. He had almost all of the masks, and 3/4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an all statue to save his game. He was on day 3, and by the Stone Tower Temple, with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link, out of tradition, and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and at other times they would call me Ben. I figured that was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kinda creep me out though after a while, and it was around after I'd beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect to the game's original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway, hoping that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now NPCs wouldn't call me anything. Where my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file name was still called Link though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again the next night, getting a lens of truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now for those of you who don't know about the 4th day glitch, the gist of it is that right as the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope at the hideout. If you time it right, the countdown disappears, you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch to try and finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game, staring at the Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no boss sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music, which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, and no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though, and this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach the reset button when text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from Anju at the Stockpot Inn, but why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started navigating the room again, testing to see if that was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen, and again like the first one, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss, yes or no? I paused for a second, contemplating what I should press and how the game would react, when I realized that I couldn't select no. Taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white, with the words "Dawn of a New Day," with the subtext of a few vertical lines beneath it, where I was ported to, filled with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had ever experienced. And the only way I can describe the way it felt here is having this feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clock Town. I walked out of the clock tower, as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all of the inhabitants were gone. Usually with the fourth day glitch you could still find the guard and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there, in the same area as me, and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you. But nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of the happy masked salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse Song of Healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time, I just remember standing in the middle of South Clocktown realizing that I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-place textures in the atmosphere and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted, but I was literally on the verge of tears and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful sense of depression was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time or Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your notes echo far, but nothing happens." By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself in the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me. Not Link, me, with Skullkid's scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned I was staring at the Link statue, from playing the song Energy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with that haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into South Clocktown, and to my horror, the fucking statue followed me. Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play at the statue appearing behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or even worse, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why, I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make weird animations I had never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I was face to face with that statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo and ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay I found no one, but as I turned to leave the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and back into a corner, I just stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly the screen flashed again to the happy masked salesman and Link turned to face my screen, standing upright mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy. Literally staring at me. Whatever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo terrified. Suddenly the game warped me to an underground tunnel and the reverse song of healing queued up again. As I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again. This time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out the tunnel and appeared at the Sun Clock Town. As I ran aimlessly, in a sheer panic, suddenly a red dot screamed, and the screen faded to black, as dawn of a new day and the vertical lines appeared again. The screen faded in and I was standing on top of Clock Tower with Skullkid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head, but the Skullkid just stared at me, handling with that fucking mask. A new song was playing, the Stone Tower Temple theme playing in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot at the Skullkid, and it actually hit him and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good, hehe." And I was picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game and Skullkid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skullkid laughed and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force and he immediately burst into flames, again killing him. This time during the death screen, the faint sounds of the reverse song of healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there was no music playing this time, that all there was eerie silence. I remembered that in the original encounter with the Skullkid you were supposed to use the ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames, and he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground dead in a position I had never seen in the game before. His head tilted towards the camera, with the Skullkid floating above him. I couldn't move, I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do is just stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with the message, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" before kicking me out to the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with Your Turn. Your Turn had 3 hearts, 0 masks, and no items. I selected Your Turn, and immediately when I did, I was returned to the Clock Tower rooftop scene of my Link dead, and the Skullkid hovering over, with the Skullkids laughing, looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up again, there was one more save file added below Your Turn, entitled Ben. Ben's save file is right back where it was before I deleted it, at the Stone Tower Temple, with the moon almost crashing. I turned the game off at that point. A while later, I started playing again. I loaded up the game and immediately I jumped at the title screen where the mask flies by. The sound that played was not the normal whoosh sound, it was something much more higher pitched. I pressed start, bracing for the worst, but just like 2 nights ago, the files Your Turn and Ben were displayed. Truth be told, I looked at the Ben file earlier, it seems to fluctuate between displaying the I'll save and not. I brought up the Ben file, hesitated for a moment, noticing that the stats were not the same as they originally were 2 days ago. It seemed like he had already completed the Stone Tower Temple this time. Summoning my courage, I selected it. Immediately, I was thrust into complete chaos. Sure enough, I was outside Stone Tower Temple, but that's about all that was expected. The zone itself wasn't called Stone Tower Temple, but rather Stone, and immediately a dialogue box of complete gibberish that I couldn't make out greeted me. Link's body was distorted, his back was cocked violently to the side where his posture was permanently disfigured. Link's expression was dull, almost monotonous. He had an expression on his face that I didn't recognize before. It was a blank look, as if he was dead. As Link stood there, his body spasmed irregularly back and forth, I examined what had become of my avatar, and noticed I had a C button item I had never seen before, some kind of note, but pressing it did nothing. Sounds played back and forth that I didn't recognize from the game, almost demonic in nature. There was some kind of high-pitched yip or some kind of laugh or something playing in the background. I had all 2 minutes to take in the environment before another one of those fucking Energy of Emptiness statues was summoned, and immediately after I was cut into the Dawn of a New Day screen. Except this time, it was without the vertical lines. I was a Deku scrub in Clocktown. This scene would normally play after the first time you traveled back in time. Tala would say, "What just happened?" It's as if everything has. But instead of saying "started over," she finished her remark in broken text, as the laugh of the Happy Mask salesman played in the background. I was put back in control of my character, but from a fucked up camera angle. I was looking from behind the door to the clock tower, watching my avatar run around as a Deku scrub. Seeing as how I really had no place to go because I couldn't see anything, I begrudgingly went inside the door. There, I was greeted by the Happy Mask salesman, who simply told me, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" before the screen widened out. I was determined I failed as a human again. I might as well not have been playing the same game anymore. I was being warped around and there was no sign of a day clock or anything. I took a moment to get to my senses as I looked around the field, and immediately I could tell that this was not normal. There were no enemies and a twisted version of the Happy Mask salesman's theme was playing. I decided to run towards Woodfall before I noticed a gathering of 3 figures off to the side, one of them being Epona. As I approached him, to my horror, I saw the Happy Mask salesman, the Skull Kid, and the Energy of Emptiness statue just standing there. I figured maybe they were bugged out, but by now, I told myself that I should know better. Nevertheless, I approached him carefully and found that the Skull Kid was playing some kind of idle animation on loop. Same with Epona, and the Energy of Emptiness statue was doing what it has been doing all along, just standing there eerily. It was the Happy Mask salesman that scared me more profoundly than the other two. He too was idle, wearing that shit-eating grin, but wherever I moved, his head slowly turned to follow me. I had not engaged in any dialogue with him, nor was I in combat with him, yet his head still continued to follow my movements. Reminded of my first encounter with the Skull Kid on top of Clock Tower, I pulled out my ocarina, to which the game played the ding sound when you're supposed to play ocarina, and tried a song I hadn't played yet, the Happy Mask salesman's own song, and the song that had been playing on loop back in day 4, the Song of Healing. I finished playing the song, and as I did, an ear-piercing shriek blasted on my TV. The sky immediately started flashing, the Happy Mask salesman's twisted theme song sped up, intensifying the fear inside me, and Link exploded into flames and died. The 3 figures stayed lit up during my death screen as they watched my lifeless body burn. The same fear that caused me to lose sleep 2 days ago started to grip me again as I was met with the text, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" for the 3rd time. There has to be some kind of meaning behind that. I had little time to ponder as I was immediately given another small cutscene of transforming into a Zora, and now I found myself in Great Temple Bay. Hesitant but curious to see what the game had in store for me, I slowly made my way towards the beach. Where I found Epona. I wondered why the game had decided to put her here. Was the game implying she was trying to get a drink? Unable to take the mask off, I decided that riding the steed wasn't the reason she was placed here. Suddenly I realized that Epona kept neighing, and the way she was angled made it look like she was trying to signal a point to me off in the distance. It was a hunch, but I dove into Great Bay and started swimming. Sure enough, I almost missed it. I found something at the bottom of the ocean. One last Elegy of Emptiness statue. I went down to examine it, and suddenly my Zora started doing a choking animation I'd never seen a Zora do before, which didn't even make sense because Zoras can breathe underwater. Regardless, my character choked to death and died. And again, the statue was the only thing that was highlighted in my death. I didn't respawn this time. I was booted back to the main menu, as if I restarted the console. The press start screen was before me. I knew the only reason why it would put me here is because the save files had changed again. Taking a deep breath, I pressed start and I was right. The new save files told me about Ben. Now it made sense why the statue appeared when I tried to go to the laundry pool. The game must have anticipated how I would have tried to escape the day 4 o'clock town. The 2 save files told me his fate. Ben drowned. After a while, the game appealed to me again. I wanted to find out the secret about Ben, so I started the game again. The 2 files, Ben and Drowned, were still intact, ready to be played, ready to be experienced. I opened the Drowned file to notice that I had 3 hearts and no rupees again, but with all the masks now. I decided to dive in. The opening text appeared, and for a second I thought I was saved, but within the blink of an eye, the text distorted. I knew that this wasn't over yet. I came to in the first room the game starts with, where you normally chase the skull kid, but the music wasn't there. It was a dead silence, a horrifying, cold silence. When I went after the skull kid like you normally should, I noticed that things were different. My jump sound was different, and the fade in of the next area was like a Triforce. When I landed, I saw him, the Skull Kid. He spoke to me the same gibberish as before, but to my surprise a few lines were actually correct. Those lines wrote, "Oh, boo-hoo, why the sad face? I just thought I'd have a little fun with you." At this point I lost it. It's like the game knew I was freaking out. When the scene of the transformation started, it was all choppy. For a split second, that bloody masked salesman appeared again. To my surprise, after the scene, I sounded like the Deku Scrub, but I was actually normal Link. The scene went on like it should, with Tattle getting separated from Tile. I sighed, believing that it was over, but of course, I should have known better. The same gibberish appeared, and I was forced to play a song. Yes, that song. The Elegy of Emptiness. When I finished playing it, the text started to glitch out. I heard a short scream, and the game faded out with the text, "You shouldn't have done that," appearing. I didn't know what to feel, but I've never felt more scared in my life. I couldn't believe my eyes when the game came back. Was this Ocarina of Time? How was that possible? I suddenly changed games? The reverse Song of Healing was playing though. I was in a cave, and to my horror, every single line of text was replaced with the words, "You shouldn't have done that." The Statue of Truth, the chest, everything in that cave had that horrifying line. I wanted to escape, I wanted to run, I wanted to leave this for good. When I left the cave, I entered Hyrule Castle, with Malon singing in the background and the owl speaking to me. He kept it short. "You shouldn't have done that." And with some strange fade out, I was sent to the one place I didn't want to be sent to. The Happy Mask shop. He was there too. I tried to run away from him, and when I read the sign, those words were there again. "You shouldn't have done that." I felt like I had no choice. I tried to run to the Happy Mask salesman, and when it happened, the game froze with an error sound. Navi saying, "Watch out!" A short high pitch and then a line. One line. "Ben is getting lonely." I was almost crying at this point, wondering, what the hell does this game want from me? I spawned at the moon, with the normal sound you hear, of birds. I walked towards the tree. But the skull kid wasn't there. I looked around. Nobody to find. When I turned to the tree again, that bloody Song of Healing, in reverse, started to play again. I knew he was behind me this time. Ben. I turned around and found out I was right. I'd rather be wrong, but I was right. I tried to look at Ben when the Happy Mask salesman appeared with that same high-pitched scream, and then the text, "You will be given one last chance." Back to where it all began. "Come play with us." And while that last line was written, the Happy Mask salesman laughed at me. Dawn of the final day, 24 hours remaining. I braced myself for whatever the game had to offer, but to my surprise I was sent to the main menu. The files changed again, didn't they? Now they write Link, my original file, and Ben. And that's when it struck me. I had 24 hours remaining. Until what? This thought shivered me with an intense fear I cannot even describe. I decided to play on. I seriously felt like these were my last 24 hours. Since I had to play with them, I decided to start Ben's file this time. I appeared in Ikana Canyon, and everything seemed fine this time. Even after walking and trying on stuff, it all seemed to be over, finally. But I couldn't be wrong more. I headed towards the Ikana Castle. So when I looked at my inventory, I noticed I had a camera shot. Out of curiosity, I looked, and of course, Ben and the Happy Mask salesman. I deleted the picture out of fear, and I wonder whether I should have done that or not. Considering the message from earlier, I felt like I really shouldn't have done that. When I moved on to meet the skeleton, I noticed that his lines were distorted too. I began to fear the worst, when I realized that this is the point where I was actually supposed to learn the Elegy of Emptiness. And of course, that happened. When I learned it, he appeared behind me again. Ben was there. I tried to move, but immediately after gaining control, I was pushed back by an unknown force. The screen turned bluish and a monster appeared with its side. And a deeper version of the Skullkid's laugh. He approached me. I had nowhere to go to, no way to escape. With one swing, he took Link's life. At the same time, I felt like he took mine as well. Why is he smiling? The father? Then appeared, as Link shivered in fear. When I respawned, I was at a graveyard, without anything on my screen. No hearts, no timer, nothing. I walked towards the first tombstone, which said, "The melody that summons the tears of angels rests here." For a split second I saw my health, only for it to disappear again, as if the game forced it to say that I didn't have any health at all. When I walked to another tombstone it wrote, "The soul of a brave soldier from Ikana rests here." When I closed the dialogue, I heard a noise from behind. I turned around and saw no one. I walked towards one last tombstone, saying, "A vessel that holds wandering spirits rests here." After that, I seemed to trip and fell to the ground. The game had buried me. Perhaps Ben did it. The line, "It'll be our little secret, okay?" appeared, and that demonic laugh of the salesman was heard again. I appeared in what seemed to be a twisted hallway, the same as in the beginning of the game. I walked on, and he was there, Ben. Before I knew it, the game froze. You can't run. Follow it. All I wanted to do was escape, but I wasn't allowed. When I respawned again, I was near those two blasted souls. The salesman and Ben. After a while, the game spawned Ben right in front of me, when the screen turned to black. "Please, help me," was written. The game then turned to what seemed to be normal. I held a file Link and my own name Matt. The game knew who I was, but decided to spare me from any more harm. When I launched the file Matt, it started with, "The counter resets." I'm glad you did that. That's the last thing I've ever seen or heard from Ben. The game acted normally again, and not a single sign of this being a cursed cartridge ever appeared again. I tried searching for it for days, but I just couldn't find it anymore. It seems that Ben couldn't be helped. He really drowned in misery, both his own and mine. And there we have it. That's the story of Ben, the creepypasta of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, a truly fascinating one, and I am really surprised that there was actually footage of this. Of course, I'm going to calm your souls, this story is fake. I wouldn't expect it to be real. The whole story was made up, I believe the game was made up, and someone apparently modded the game so that the footage was made. It really didn't happen. So perhaps that calms you a little bit, but I find it a frightening story. I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments below. What did you think of the story? What do you think of Ben? Like, what do you think of the whole mystery around it? Like, I'd like to hear your opinions, that's all. So, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this creepypasta, mainly reading and watching, make sure to leave a like and a comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.